Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Professor Ming's Strategic Insights. Recently in Taiwan, we've been noticing that Communist China, or Beijing, has been promoting a theory, saying that how unreliable the United States is, or how untrustworthy the United States is. So I coined a term. I simply called it the untrustworthy U.S. theory. And to be sure, this is a cognitive warfare launched by Beijing against Taiwan, Taiwanese, and against the overseas Chinese. We've been saying that the Chinese Communists has been placing much emphasis on propaganda or in brainwashing. They believe in that, and they're very good at it. And this promotion of the so-called untrustworthy U.S. theory is one of their major technical moves in recent years. The logic behind it is quite simple. They do have a grand strategy. They have a grand strategy of overpassing the United States and other countries. Just as their Soviet predecessors, Chinese communists believe in that grand strategy. They want to communize the entire world, or they want to spread communism to every corner of the world. And that's what it is. And this grand strategy has steps. The first one, for the Chinese, it has steps. The first one is, of course, the seizure of Taiwan. And the last one, of course, the defeat of the United States, or to strike down the United States. Just as Marx and Lenin once claimed, the primary target of the communists is to defeat and bury capitalism and imperialism. And the United States of America is the sole major representation of this capitalism and imperialism. That makes the United States the arch enemy of the communists around the world. So again, if you want to defeat the United States, the seizure of Taiwan is the first step. But Taiwan is relatively small and weak and easier to attack and to incorporate. So, but the question is, Taiwan has a relatively robust bond with the United States, the strongest country in the world. So if you want to take Taiwan as a first step to your grand strategy, then you have to divide up the relationship or the bond between Taiwan and the United States. You have to drive a wedge between them so that you can divide and conquer. And that's why they want to launch this cognitive war against Taiwan as a first step. Tactics of theirs. Now let's look at the contents they're going to spread and the media they use and the measures they're taking and things like that. First one is, of course, about the contents. There are several lines of major arguments, or what they call the major themes or the main themes of propaganda at different point of time. The first line of the argument goes like this. United States is untrustworthy, it's unreliable. Because the United States has sold out Taiwan before. It has betrayed Taiwan. And it did that before, so it will do that sometime in the future. For instance, the Shanghai Communique in 1972, and the communique to establish formal diplomatic relations with Communist China in 1979 by President Carter, and then the 1982 communique to limit arms sales to Taiwan and things like that. All these are prominent examples of betrayal of Taiwan on the part of the United States. So the United States has betrayed Taiwan before, and so it will sometime in the future. And that's the second point. The third point is they are saying that the United States has been forcing Taiwan to buy weapons from them. And the problem with that is they've been selling outdated weapons, and they seem to be inadequate for Taiwan theater. That's not right, but they force Taiwan to buy weapons because they want to make money from Taiwan. And then further from that is that the United States want to use Taiwan as a leverage to check against the Communist China and use Taiwan as a leverage. And sometimes they even go as far as to saying that United States support Taiwan independence, or at least they say United States is sending misleading information to those people who advocate Taiwan independence and to encourage them in the wrong way. And that's another line of argument. And then what follows that is they've been saying that the United States tried to force Taiwan into a war, a military war against mainland China, so that to prevent the rise of China and use Taiwan, again, as a leverage to prevent China from rising. This is what I call the false Chinese nationalism. And they've been using that for many years. And then what follows that if the United States could discard or to abandon Afghanistan in 2022, so can it abandon Taiwan sometime in the future? And again, in recent days, they say that since Trump can abandon Ukraine, so can he abandon Taiwan. So they say Ukraine today, Taiwan tomorrow. This is the first line of the main theme of their arguments. So that was the first one. And the second or another one, another main theme of their arguments is like China is rising, or the rise of China. Look at China, how strong it is. It has a very robust economy. It has very advanced technology, and this and that. And it has a very powerful military forces. So it's great. It's rising. And China's economy is doing so good, and it will surpass the United States in certain year. They've been saying, in year 2030, 2035, and 2040, and as late as 2050, China will for sure exceed United States economy, and that's for sure. And then they say, well, there are all kinds of invention by Chinese, this and that, and they may progress in this area and in that area. So they have outperformed the United States in this and that area. For instance, the deep sea submarine, they can go down as far as, such feet, and it defeats the United States. That's one thing. The second one is their space technology, or for instance, their space station and this and that. And then quantum calculation, or man-made sun or artificial sun, they can produce heat as high as how many degrees, and that has never been done by anyone else, including the United States, of course. And then their achievement, their ability to build robots, and they can do this and that, and the robo-dogs, and the drones, and unmanned submarines, or even the hypersonic glide vehicle. And it can attack the United States through the Antarctic pole rather than the Arctic pole, and things like that. So that means should there be a war between the United States and Communist China, then Communist China would defeat the United States for sure. So this is echoing the first line of argument. And what follows is that if Beijing is to attack Taiwan, then the United States will be too chicken to come to Taiwan's rescue. And the United States will stay away from it. And Taiwan is doomed, and that's for sure. And not surprisingly, most recently, the case of Taiwan's TSMC, the CEO of TSMC, Mr. C.C. Wei, his announcement to make a big investment in the United States. And they say that first, Mr. Wei is stupid, or he's not stupid, but he's forced or he's pressured by the United States, or even pressured by Trump himself to make the investment. So the United States is so vicious, they want to hollow out Taiwan, they want to hollow out TSMC, they want to drain Taiwan out, and that's it, drain Taiwan dry. So this is it. So these are all kinds of contents they've been spreading in Taiwan, or even to overseas Chinese. These are the contents. What about the media? Now, what about the measures they've been using? The media, they have access to Taiwan's newspapers, to Taiwan's radio stations, and to Taiwan's televisions. So they've been doing that literally every day and every night. If you come to Taiwan, if you switch to Taiwan's TV channels, you can see that every night. and that's the traditional ones. As for the new media or for the websites or platforms, the recent platforms such as YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, Twitter, or even TikTok or Little Red Book, and they use them very frequently. They use them by way of group chat. They set up all kinds of group chat to spread their misinformation. Say the group for retired civil servants, or active or retired soldiers, or military officers, or even among religious groups. So they're actually infiltrating in every possible group chat they can have access to. And the targets, of course, like I said, mainly against Taiwanese, and then secondly, overseas Chinese. They do it every day, and even sometimes they send them out at random. I occasionally will receive information like that. And the amazing thing for them is they follow up the recent news very, very closely, like the TSMC news and the war in Ukraine. And several years back, they follow the news like COVID-19. And anyway, they do whatever they can to divide up the relations between Taiwan and the United States, and make sure that Taiwanese would suspect that the United States is not coming to their help, it's not helping them out, or they're no longer friends. Anyway, so they're really making every effort to make sure that the bonds between Taiwan and the United States is sabotaged, is ruined. Does it have any effect? Yes, it does. Let me tell you this. It does hurt the relations between Taiwan and the United States, and even divide up Taiwan internally among different political parties, among our soldiers or officers, and even the general public. So that is a serious problem. We have to admit that. So in conclusion, they've been trying very hard to spread the so-called untrustworthy U.S. theory in Taiwan and toward overseas Chinese. And it does have some effect. They divide us up from inside, from internally, and they try to sabotage the relations between Taiwan and the United States, and does have some effect. So we have to be alert. We have to caution against this kind of effort by them, and we have to fight back. And this is one of the reasons that we do this program, and we're hoping that not only we have to do our best to check it, and we're hoping that the United States could do the same. The government of the United States, or the officials or the officers of the United States would have to come forward a little bit more frequently, try to clarify some misinformation, and to fight back against this kind of information. So again, the situation is quite serious, and we have to be sensitive to it. And I think that's all I want to share with you today. And we're going to do some follow-up on this subject in the future when the time comes. But let's be vigilant. If you haven't subscribed to our program, please do so and share it with your friends, and then click the icon bell so that you'll get a simultaneous notification when we have a new program on. And that's all for today. I'll see you next week.